Before we begin the episode, I would like to thank our sponsor, Actimet, an athlete wellness and performance monitoring system. Actimet allows players to share their training load, training intensity and highlight issues away from sport, empowering management to help players in a safe, secure and private manner. Players input their performance and wellness data on an easy-to-use mobile app. Actimet is an affordable monitoring system at less than €50 a month and is currently used by county and All-Ireland champions and over 50 soccer academies worldwide. For more information, please visit actimet.com for more. Welcome back to the Sideline Live podcast. You can follow us over on Twitter and Instagram at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. In episode 82, I'm delighted to be joined by the Irish Rugby Sevens captain, 15s international, and former Wicklow senior ladies footballer Lucy Mulhall. In this episode, we discuss her career, picking up a new sport, leadership, and so much more. Lucy is one of the most impressive athletes I've had on to date, so I hope you enjoy. Hi Lucy, thanks a million for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Orla. Delighted to be here.
Before we get into everything, would you mind giving a quick 30-second minute intro to the listeners who might not know who you are?
Yeah, so Lucy Mulhall, I'm the current captain of the Irish Women's Sevens team, and I play with Wicklow Rugby Club. My main background has always been Gaelic football. I played for Tinahealy ladies football club and then also for Wicklow, and I transferred over to Rugby Sevens back in 2014 and I haven't looked back since. So yeah, that's a brief intro.
You've had a busy few weeks since, or maybe is it even weeks at this stage since Seville? Has it settled in? What happened?
Yeah, it was crazy few days. Yeah, it's mad to look back on it. I think at the time I was just so heartbroken with the final itself. Like it's mad. You think you ever get to a final or have a silver medal in your hand, you just be absolutely ecstatic. But you still, when you're in a final and you're that close to winning, it's amazing how much it just still hurts as much as if you were playing for another position. But definitely days later, I was able to appreciate how far we've came as a squad. And for years there, it felt like we were so far off. And this year, I think with a nice blend of new players, younger players, and then maybe the blend of experience as well, it kind of seems like it's coming together. And I think it's a really positive thing for women's rugby in the country, which is nice to be able to have at the moment.
Exactly. It's funny that you mentioned you were devastated with the final. That's totally understandable. But when you go back maybe a couple of years ago and you say you're going to win a silver medal, you'd bite my hand off if that was.
Oh, totally. Like, honestly, what I dreamed about doing for years and years, I was singing my national anthem at a World Series, and I never to that day did I get an opportunity. So when we actually made the final, I 100% was like, just go enjoy it for everything that it is. But when you're out there, it's just competitive as anything else, and it's quite nice to get to that stage and feel like you're competitive, rather than get to the final and just be there for the experience of it. It actually was us going out there to try and beat the world champions, which was a nice feeling, and also a really good learning curve that the next time hopefully it won't just be a silver medal, we can actually get the gold.
Exactly. For you growing up, you mentioned your GAA mad from Tinahealy. Who originally got you involved in sport? And it's a very successful pocket. It's a great GAA club. The ladies are doing really well. Why is it such a big thing down there? Why is there so much success for the ladies side?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm not sure. It's still a very new GAA club. I think it was 2010 possibly that it first started. My mum was involved in starting, and she was actually involved in the first Wicklow ladies team as well. So she was into GAA. My dad was the same. He was into GAA. But we all started, myself, Jackie Kinch and Sarah Hogan were always around the same age. And we all started playing with the boys because there was only a boys club. And really, once the ladies club got started, it's funny how culture just seemed to grow by itself, and it became just this club that was full of fun, but also happened to be very competitive. And I think it became a place that people wanted to be a part of. So then it seemed to attract just girls from underage. And it is like that saying, the whole can't see, can't be. Like, we were fortunate, I guess ladies football wasn't maybe at the level that it is now back then, and we were winning juniors and intermediates and eventually getting up to senior, that we had a very early chance to hit girls that were like in primary schools and make them aware. And it's a great thing the club do, like after each county final, they go around to all the local primary schools with the cup. They get involved with all the underage. So I really think it's the culture, and it's always been a culture just fun first. And that's I think what the girls do really, really well is that they just enjoy themselves and they become role models then for everyone around them.
And speaking of role models, who did you look up to growing up? Was there any particular player, male or female, that you aspired to be like?
Yeah, I always said, unfortunately, growing up, all I had to look at was on TV was, or even going around to county games, really was male players. And the Gooch Cooper was my the one, or Desi Dolan of Westmead. But they were kind of the ones that I looked up to. And then I think as I was 17, no, maybe 16 or 17 on the school bus when I got my first call up for the juniors, so the senior ladies county team. And I never knew that Wicklow had a senior ladies county team. Well, it was junior at the time, but I never knew it existed. And I remember getting called in and meeting the girls for the first time, and very quickly the likes of Keelan Deeney or Katrina McKeown became my heroes very quickly. And having teammates who became friends at the age like in their mid-20s to 30, and having them as like role models was definitely really important for me. And definitely made me, I think, want to push on as a footballer, and inspired me to want to actually achieve great things, and not just at that time it was pure enjoyment, whereas then I became like really wanted to hone in on my craft then as well.
Growing up, did you play anything else? I know rugby came in a little bit later, but was there anything in particular growing up, or was it just GAA mad?
Yeah, GAA Camogie as well. The club team that I played with, Knockananna, there's a massive crossover between Tinahealy and Knockananna, and they're actually in an All-Ireland junior All-Ireland Camogie club final, in a week and a half time. But yeah, played camogie, played football, did athletics. Mum even sent me to Irish dancing, but I sneak outside to play soccer instead of doing it because I hated it. Yeah, we played tin whistle, played fiddle. We were thrown into everything, but anything that was girly, I really didn't enjoy. So yeah, it was football. I loved soccer as well, playing soccer with the lads in school. I was just like a little tomboy running around the place, just sports mad.
Brilliant. And you mentioned getting involved with the senior Wicklow team. I think you did you win All Ireland with Wicklow?
Yeah, we did in 2011.
You were saying before on another podcast, kind of looking back maybe, and you kind of mentioned it there, you were there for purely enjoyment, maybe you'd focus a little bit more on your craft. You said you would you kind of do things a little bit differently. What did you mean by that, and what would you kind of, looking back, I know hindsight's a great thing, but what would you do differently from your ladies football career at the time?
Yeah, I think what I definitely did was I just relied on what talent I had at the time, which probably came from the enjoyment that through just going to training, I'd actually pick up the amount of areas I'd be practicing my skill, but I wouldn't do anything. Once I'd leave a RF football pitch, that would be it. That would be me done. I'd be back, and it didn't come into any other aspect of my life in regards to any decisions I made around diet or even going out, socialising, anything like that. That I was very much, I enjoyed rugby. Enjoyed football. I went to football, but then I decided that my decisions around what time to go to sleep or nothing like that would be affected really by if there was a match the next day. And I was fortunate to get so far with the talent that I had, but like 100%, I could have been a lot better player than what I was then. And then I also didn't realize that if you actually put on a county jersey, even if you don't see yourself as a role model, you are a role model. That I think doing those small things and being a different person off the pitch I would have been a better role model for younger girls at that stage. But I was just turned 18 when we won that All Ireland, and I hadn't a care in the world, and it didn't, like, I had no awareness of what we potentially did or could have done in Wicklow for young girls growing up.
Okay, that's really interesting. So do you think then when you transferred to rugby that it kind of developed that work ethic where, because you hadn't played, you had to make up the difference, and that's kind of where you always obviously had a work ethic at the time, but you started making those off the pitch decisions, the sleep, the diet, the different things?
Yeah, definitely. I think perhaps maybe it was like 3 seasons before I started playing rugby, I started kind of taking county football seriously. I was selected as captain. I kind of seen that I had to put in extra work, because as we got up from junior to intermediate, no longer was I like the fastest girl on the pitch instantly, that I'd be able to get out in front for a ball. I actually wanted to get stronger. I needed to get fitter, to work harder. And so I think part of that came, and like I always had that kind of push from home as well. They always just wanted me to enjoy it, but equally, Dad would always remind me how much of a privilege it was to play for your county. So then I think I did. I think perhaps with age and maturity, I realised that not everyone is fortunate to get to play with their county, and I didn't want to just treat it as if it was a free ride. And like I think our competitiveness within the squad was high as well. Also, I think the Junior All Ireland gave me a taste for Croke Park, and I knew that wasn't going to happen anytime soon unless we pushed on a lot of the squad, because intermediate's a big step up. But then thrown completely out of my comfort zone into rugby, it's definitely like whatever grasp of an ego you have before that, you'd certainly have none when you go in and you don't know what a ruck is, or you don't know how to pass the ball, or you catch yourself offside all the time. So very quickly I realised that firstly I realised that everything was up against me to actually make it happen, and very quickly I really, really wanted it to happen. I really enjoyed it. I wanted it more than anything. So then I knew that I had a massive hill to climb, and then the more you learn about sevens or rugby in general, it's very small things done well. So then I knew that it was just a matter of hours and hours and hours of my craft. And fortunately, I think it was positive reinforcement that the harder I worked, the better I did get, and the closer I did get to getting selected. So I think that's really shaped my career. And now, if anyone asks me what, 100%, I'd prefer over anything else to be called the hardest worker on the pitch over the top try scorer or the fastest or the most skillful. I think hard work is the biggest benefit that you can bring to a team. So kind of a lot of learnings over the years.
We're 11 minutes in. I can already get a sense of your mentality, and it's amazing. But how do you maintain the enjoyment level when you're driving yourself to be the best you can be, which is probably not always very enjoyable at some points?
Yeah. I'm very, very competitive, and I hate losing. But I think in training, we're very fortunate when you're in an environment like ours and you're training against Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe or Bevan Parsons, you get flattened on your arse more often than not, and you fail more often than not. So as much as I'm competitive and I always want to get better, you kind of learn that there's areas where you have to just try stuff and fail. That training's kind of a safe space for that. I think my enjoyment also from the sport comes from going through a lot of hardship with my teammates. I think that's how we've bonded over the years, and now I've got such close friends that I actually know that by going those hard yards, by earning their respect, by working hard for them, then at the end we'll turn around after a tournament, have a few drinks, and it's far more enjoyable then. For me, I think enjoyment comes from that. I think enjoyment comes from lying in the bed at night with achy legs, knowing that I'm absolutely after emptying myself. For some reason, that's I get so much more enjoyment from that than I would from lying in the bed all day. So it's weird, but I've kind of just fallen in love with this kind of, I guess, the opportunities that you get from a high performance sport, where every day you get an opportunity to push yourself, and that's been massively enjoyable for me. And the friends that I've made along the way, I think they're even the strength of friendship is even higher because of the hardships that we've been through as well.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Listen to what you're saying there. But in terms of going back to deciding to pick up rugby, you were the county captain. You just you were going through kind of intermediate. You wanted to push yourself. When did the rugby start to come into things? What was the thinking to make that switch to start a new sport and kind of drive with that sport?
There was no thinking, and that's honestly, I say it every time. I think if that opportunity came up right now, I am risky enough, or I'm too cautious to actually have made that leap of faith. At the time, I was a second year college student. I was facing into exams. I got an email asking if I was interested in this rugby sevens Olympic program, and I guess I don't think I was necessarily lost, but I certainly was just open to try things. And I wish I could say that it was a very thought out process and that it just gradually happened. But what happened was that I literally got a chance to go in, got a trial, and the first time I ever played sevens properly, I hadn't a clue what was going on, but I fell in love with it. Weirdly enough, it was that we were a development team at a World Series event, and I fell in love with how fast this game was. And like, there's 6 other people on a full pitch, and if you don't do your job, you're letting everyone else down. So there's massive like accountability and responsibility with it. Which to me was just like, this is class. You can't coast here at all. Like, you have a job all the time. For that full 7 minutes, you can't switch off once. And I think that attracted me so much. And then I also could see the senior girls playing on the World Series, and I could see the level that they were at. And it was so far off for me, but it was a challenge that I think gave me massive purpose at that time. And I'm so glad that I did take that leap of faith now.
It's amazing listening to what you're saying there about work ethic and accountability, and what you've mentioned before about maybe when you're about 18, 19, obviously it comes with maybe age and maturity, but that wasn't the case. That you seem to just completely flipped your mindset there totally.
Yeah, it's funny, like now going back and getting released for GA, like I don't even play in the same position. I feel like I'm a different person. But I think when I was younger, I don't think I was really lazy or anything. I definitely loved going training, and I definitely worked hard when I was there. I just think what I define as hard work has changed massively since then. I probably defined myself as being hard working back then, but now I know what hard work looks like, and probably have redefined that. Luckily I was shown that there's so much more in you as a human being, or in my body, that I could actually give. That if I had known that back then perhaps, like, I come from a family where my dad, you'd have to tie him to the couch. He's such a hardworking man. He's farming like 24/7, and my mom's the exact same. Like, she has a heart attack and was back out running like 6 months later. Like, they're just hardworking people. So I definitely think it was ingrained in me somewhere, but I perhaps didn't transition that directly to sport until I got the opportunity through rugby.
Mm-hmm. What would be, you mentioned it there, what would be your definition of hard work, if that is a thing?
I think it's just doing everything you possibly can in any given moment to push yourself in the direction that you want to go. So for me, I had to learn that at times that is just resting, which is my least favorite part of it. But it's getting your recovery right, or it's just making smart decisions around what you're eating. For me, for a long time, I thought that for hard work, I had to be battering myself all the time. And on weekends, I'd be going and doing stupid runs, and then I'd come back into the week of training and I'd be wrecked, but I'd still just, like, I'd end up breaking down and getting injured because I just wanted to do more and more and more. And I think over the years, I've kind of learned that hard work manifests in many different ways, and sometimes it's just sitting down and watching a rugby game and trying to learn from that. So yeah, it's just kind of taking steps towards your end goal, and being very definite about that in all of your decision making, I guess.
Mm-hmm. There's a fascinating TED talk with Dean Archer-Smith, a GB Olympian, and she was saying about kind of motivation, and I'm interested to hear about what drives you. And she was saying maybe what it isn't, sort of the normal answer, but for her, what drives her is the fear of failure. She doesn't want to fail. She wants to get as much as she can out of herself. Are you more driven by that fear of failure, success, and this kind of, sport isn't around forever? When you eventually do stop playing, you want to say, I have put every single thing I have into this?
I think at a time I definitely would have been, but I think that constrained me as a player. Any thoughts of failure at all, just I don't think it's a good way to play. And I think I learned that myself, that I couldn't actually express myself fully or take the risks that you need to do to be a world-class athlete, which I do think, especially in team sports, it is about making risks or taking risks. For me, I think there's so much more to life than sports. And for me, it's all about what you can do as a person, how many people you can actually influence in a positive way, and also about who you are. So for me, it's around the person that I am. And if I am who I say I am, then I'm that, whether I lose or whether I win. And I think every day is a challenge that way. If you're going to get pushed outside your comfort zone every day, fail in training, then are you the person that you want to be even when you're failing or when you're winning? So for me, I think it's a test of character, and my motivation is always just to try and prove to myself that I am who I want to be. And also, like, I'll never ever forget like how much support I've had, whether it be from Tinahealy after leaving the club to go and follow this dream, or my parents, my family, my friends. But then equally the amount of girls that have came in and out of the program, like I've witnessed quite a lot of that, and I owe a lot to those girls. But I also want to make sure that the next generation have it better than what I've had it. Which I think the future of women's sport, and then in particular of women's rugby in Ireland, can be so positive. And it's really exciting that we are in a position right now that we could be a generation that makes sure that the next generation have it so much better.
Amazing. Out of interest then, you mentioned it there, what type of person do you want to be then, whether you win or lose?
For me, I think it's important to be always respectful, to be humble. I think my mum always ingrained that in me, and whether I come home from a World Series tournament or that I've won or I've lost, or doesn't matter what I've done, she'll treat me the exact same. And there won't be hullabaloo, there won't be big celebration parties, or I won't be allowed to mope around or be none of that. It's just you are who you are based on how kind you are to other people, how much you care for other people. And for me, that's really important. And I think in sport as well, it's to not let your ego get into the room too much. That I don't play sport for my own ego, and that no matter if I'm going well or if I'm not going well, I'm still showing the same level of kindness to people around you. And definitely, hopefully, we'll see more success in the future. And then that's always a challenge to keep being who you said you wanted to be.
In terms of that adjustment period, you mentioned there about kind of if you had any ego, moving to a new sport will definitely take it away. Can you describe that adjustment period of going from one sport to another, becoming a completely new beginner? And it's funny, I've listened to a couple of podcasts and with elite level athletes, and it's like this high performance mindset I find is not that to become great at one thing, but you want to become great at multiple things. That seems to be kind of the trend that I'm getting from you here.
Yeah, definitely. I completely see that if you have a super strength that gets you to where you are at the moment, that you have to always work on that. But I think you have to everything, especially from joining a new sport, you have to at least get to average at everything else first. And for me, that was like, it was probably massively exciting for me because there were brand new skills that, I couldn't get much worse at them, like, because I couldn't do them at all in the first place. So you see massive growth, which probably was really nice. At the beginning, like, yeah, definitely that first 6 months, I could see such a greater growth than say the last 6 months, because it becomes so much harder to find 1%ers as you actually get better at those skills. But yeah, for me, it was I didn't want to be a burden to anyone on the pitch. I wanted to be able to hold my own. I wanted to be able to work hard. I wanted to be able to be a teammate that was very valuable to the girl next to me. And eventually then I wanted to put on a green jersey, and I knew that if you were going to do that, well, you have to have these basic skills that many girls grow up from the age of 5 playing rugby, and they have all of them. I think I just really enjoyed that. It's quite disciplined to just stand there and catch and pass a ball for, could be an hour, could be 2 hours a day, and to do that every single day. And I was mad for doing it. Like, I'd bring it home at the weekend and I'd be practicing away with my family, and there was something quite disciplined about it. But again, I could see the improvements because it was so new to me. So I definitely think I did hone in on those. And even now, when I sit down to do an IDP, I struggle to pick 2 or 3 things that I want to focus on. I want to fix everything. So I just have to try and remember to just focus in on 1 or 2 areas at any given time, and then you'll eventually get around to all of them.
I love the way you mentioned there at the beginning, it's a lot easier to jump, let's say 10%. When you get to that 1%er, it's very difficult. And I spoke with Andy Friend about this as well, and kind of, I get the sense that, like, becoming a world-class athlete, boring is the wrong word, but does it get very monotonous? Like, he had a great quote, bored man gets paid, because the people who do the most repetitive things over and over again, sleeping well, eating well, gym, extra session, training, does it get very monotonous for you? Do you just enjoy the its boringness. I don't even know if that's a word.
Yeah, I think I enjoy routine. I'll call it routine, but
yeah, to call it routine, that's a better word.
Yeah, I think I find comfort in that now. And there was definitely periods where I found myself far more comfortable and relaxed and happy in that routine, where I actually had to push myself further to find balance in life, because as I said, there's so much more to life than sport. But definitely it's just really, really small things that often when people ask you, like, what's life like being a professional athlete, or what's it take to get to that level, it is all the very boring things that people don't want to do, like putting yourself to bed early, or just eating the right food, or even things like stretching and working on your mind. Like, they're definitely things that only as I got older did I actually realize how important they are. And yeah, I don't think it gets boring for me, because I actually quite love it now. And I think because you see the rewards of it, whereas if you were constantly doing the same thing but not seeing anything back from it, then that's time to just reassess and see what you're doing wrong.
Definitely, yeah. When you come from LGFA to rugby, everyone talks about the crossover between basketball, say, or multiple sports, and how beneficial it is. Was there anything that you brought from ladies football to rugby that you found beneficial? Was it maybe even just doing strength and conditioning at Wicklow? Was there any sort of benefit that you brought with you to the team or for yourself?
I think ladies football, like, there's so many transferable skills, and the girls that play, because I haven't played county football in so long, the girls that play it right now, it's at such a high quality. They're so athletic, they're so skillful, that definitely, like, we've seen over the years, Louise Galvin, Hannah Tyrrell, Stacey Flood, like, we've had so many GA players come across to rugby. And just firstly for the ball, like the hand-eye coordination and ball handling skills. But then I also think your awareness of space, that's massive in GA. Like, if you see a gap to take it, or even your awareness of how to take someone on and step them. So definitely they were massively transferable at the time. I think the fact that I'd actually grown up playing a ball sport was massive, because we also had girls coming in from athletics, or even from hockey, that was like a stick sport, that that was much harder for them. So that definitely helped. And then there's an element of contact in GA as well. So you're wording like brand new to that. And at the time, as I said, there was Hannah, Louise, Emer Constantine, Stacey. There's a few of us at the time that were transferring over.
Yeah.
So I think we were able to kind of help each other out, and we could see where we're coming from. Having said that, though, I think nowadays women's rugby is at such a level that I think it's much harder to transfer over. I think back when I was doing it, we weren't on the series at the time, so I probably had a bit more time, and the sport was a bit fresher, whereas nowadays it's probably at a higher level that it might be a bit more difficult to transfer over.
Yeah, totally. In terms of being a high performer, and I had a great podcast with Aoife McDermott, and she was saying, I was kind of asking her, how do you leave the pitch and have no regrets? And she said, Orla, when you're a high performer, you don't really leave the pitch with no regrets. There's always this thing, I could have done this, could have done that. How do you manage that mentality of when you're looking back on a game? And I'm sure that you can pick out loads of things, like you even mentioned the final where you weren't happy with it. How do you manage that mentality? Can you switch it off in terms of being able to just say, just park it on the pitch, or is it just this mentality that's all encompassing?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually saying to one of the girls, we got released for a club. So I played an AIL game with Wicklow last weekend, and I actually couldn't sleep all Saturday night because I was thinking about the game, and I was so frustrated over it. And we're supposed to be just, getting to play with a club and enjoy it. So it's definitely something I still struggle with, and sometimes it's better than others. Sometimes you'll have like that final in Seville where you can turn around and say, well, actually, look how far we've came. I think for me, it's sometimes if I feel like I've let others down in how I've played, that I struggle to let go of that, and I have to try and pull together some tangible realistic way that I can turn things around that can make sure that doesn't happen again. And in fairness, like our coaching staff are so helpful that if it was something to do with fitness, I can go to the S&C, something to do with rugby, I'll go to the coach or the analyst. That I just always find that I have to get something that's very like actionable and get a plan in place. But we do reviews after tournaments, and like I think once you've watched it and maybe watched it again twice or three times and went through the stats of it and sat down as a team and talked it through, then it's easier to kind of put it aside. The reality is I've never walked off a pitch ever, and I don't think I ever will be 100% happy. And I think if you were doing that, then you're playing within your comfort zone far too much. So you shouldn't really be out on the pitch in the first place. But yeah, it's definitely something that at times it can hit you more, and sometimes I'm not very good at letting go of it either.
Yeah, that's the nature of it, I think. You mentioned the IPD thing there. I think that's what it was. I presume your individual player development or something along the lines of that.
Yeah, our individual development plan.
Yeah. How often would you go through that? Is that very player driven? Is it coach driven? How does that work?
So we actually have a new coach. We kind of have a new staff team at the moment. So we just did our first one recently with him. We have done it previously. But as it works, we're kind of working off blocks. So at the moment, it's kind of between now and the next World Series block. I think what's been really good on this one is we've got areas both on and off the field that we are trying to hone in on. And then we also link that up with us as a playing group. Ourselves, then we'll have certain focuses for the block ourselves, whether it be on the field, but more often than not, it's actually just off field stuff, working on our culture, working on things that we can actually improve on ourselves, because the coach at the end of the day takes a lot of ownership around what happens on the field.
Okay, and of interest, what if you're willing to share? You don't have to. What are your kind of blocks of? What are you kind of focusing on for the next little while?
I had to try shorten it down, but for me at the moment, my coach at the moment is really focusing in on what we see as players on the pitch. So for me, it's around scanning in my attack, but often I'm good at scanning to see where I can create space for other players, but now it's around always having a run, kick, pass option. So to try and improve my running game or my kick options, and not just always look at kind of draw and give. So that's a big focus for me in training, and it pushes me outside my comfort zone to do that. And then I'm also working a lot on rehabbing. That's an area that my hamstrings have just always notoriously caused me issues. So this we're taking the time, I guess, to my hamstrings and strengthen them up a bit, and then off field kind of looking at more career development and future planning for myself. And we're very fortunate to have RPI who help out with that. So delving into that now as well. So a few different areas to.
Very good. In terms of the first ever time, you played rugby sevens and you were representing your country, can you describe what it's like to sing the first national anthem in the jersey? Is it? Can you describe that moment?
It's, I don't know if you can put it into words. It's like what you just feel massive purpose in what you're doing, I guess, and there's nowhere else in the entire world that you'd ever want to be in that moment in time. It's massive. Like it's quite an emotional thing. And for me, I just always think of where I've come from and the people that have helped me to get to where I am. And I think that's what makes it even more special. So I could just imagine the smile that was on their face.
Totally. In terms of the going from, I think you mentioned the other podcast, messing up the drills the first time you were there to becoming captain, what was that kind of unseen hours like for you, and why do you think they named you captain? Is there, for you as the captain, I know it's hard to kind of reflect on yourself and see from other people's eyes, but can you tell why they made you captain? I can, but can you?
I don't know. I kind of think Anthony was a bit mad back in the day. He was he became coach just about 5 months, I think it was, after I started playing. So he didn't know any different. Everyone was new to him when he first started. And now I'm like, geez, you were mad to make me captain. Like, I think I was 9 months in. I got my first cap and I was captain at the time. But thankfully he just seen something in me. And I think he definitely helped to get the leader in me out. Because it wasn't naturally there, I don't feel. But he gave me that ownership and kind of empowered me to become a leader. And I'm very fortunate that he seen it in me at the time, because as a 21-year-old, I never dreamed that I'd ever captain my country ever. And that was so special. But I think that also helped shape me as a person, in that I knew that I wasn't comfortable as a 21-year-old with all these older girls who were like my absolute idols to talk and speak up in huddles or anything. So then what became my leadership style was lead by example, and I think that's what helped me to pick up all those little 1%ers here and there, because I was so fixated on it. You are the captain of this team, you have to lead by example and walk the walk, which I think helped push me on as a player who was new to the sport, and then also probably helped us as a squad, because I was a very raw player and I was making so many mistakes, and I guess if your captain is making those mistakes, then it makes it acceptable to try things and fail, even because that's the only way that we were going to grow as a team. We were quite a new team, I guess, to the sport at the time. So yeah, I don't know, I think I was just very fortunate, that I actually should ask Anthony that like 7 years later what made him do it.
There's a great quote. I love the way you keep mentioning failure and how important failure is. There's a brilliant quote: failure is not a full stop, it's a comma. Failure seems to be so important. I think it's nearly something maybe we shy away, maybe particularly at a younger age, but I've realised, and through the podcast, is how important it is to actually fail, and fail forward, not just fail and stop like the full stop. It's just a comma, you keep going.
Yeah, definitely. And the bigger you fail, the bigger you learn, I think. And it's been great. The last 6 months with our new coach, he's definitely created scenarios in training where you can't but fail all the time, and it's very humbling, but it's also, I think, helped me to learn so much more, and I think it's also helped shape us as a team, because we were that team who came 12th or 11th on the series, and we learned and we crawled our way out of it, so that then when we actually now can stand in our bedroom with a silver medal around our neck, it obviously means so much more to us as a group, which I think is really important. And it also shows that how far we've been able to bring the program so far, and if we've been able to do that, then I've got no doubt that the girls that are coming next will like reach crazy heights in the future.
Speaking of lessons for you overall, out of ladies football and rugby, what's been the biggest lesson you've learned from sport?
For me, it's as a team sport. Like, I love team sport. I definitely be no good at individual sport, and it's about always putting the player or the person before the player, and getting to know your teammates off the field, because I think that's so valuable. When you ask about motivations, I've got so many motivations that are personal to me, but at the end of the day, when I go out on the pitch, it's actually that I get to do it with girls that I care massively about. And I think that's the addiction that I have, is that, like, you're going out there with this massive purpose as a group, and I definitely couldn't do that as an individual sports wouldn't appeal to me at all, because then who do you come back into the changing room with and cry if you lose, or celebrate if you win? So for me, it was at times I was too fixated on trying to prove myself as a player, and for me now it's actually, if you know the girls around you well enough, you care about their whys, you understand their stories, then I think you'll push yourself even further on the pitch, and you'll buy into the team a lot more.
I noticed your Whoop band there. Out of interest, is there any habits or routines that you have away from the pitch, or gym, or anything outside of, kind of team-based sessions that you attribute your success to?
I am no good without sleep at all. I ask people who have to put up with me on a daily basis. Like, because of the commute, I'm up at 6 o'clock in the mornings during the week, so I'm in bed at 9 o'clock. My housemates know that I just disappear after my. So it's definitely sleep. Sleep is my best friend, as my S&C Orla always says. But yes, sleep, I think, and just the value of fueling myself then around sessions have been very valuable. And then for me, kind of being able to switch off, because at times I can get carried away. My head goes mad with different ideas of what I can do better or what we can do as a team. So I definitely got better at finding ways to just switch off, whether it be just socializing with friends or listening to podcasts, just finding that balance in life. I definitely then think I'm a better rugby player when I'm away from rugby, I'm away from it. And then when I'm there, I'm able to be so intense about it then, because I've switched off.
Brilliant. You mentioned before about the equality in the sevens. I was actually really impressed with that. For those who don't know, can you explain the setup of the sevens and how it's very equal based across both the male and female squads?
Yeah, so we were actually contracted before the men's
Oh,
team.
okay, sorry, I didn't know
We
that.
qual we qual Yeah, we qualified for the series before the men's team, so they were still on a development squad. But then when they qualified for the series, we both became contracted squads, and the IRFU committed to equal contracts and equal pay for both squads. So we have the same amount of people contracted on the same bands of pay, let's say. And we all use the same facilities out in Blanche. We have separate management teams, but they will cross over quite a bit, and we travel together. So we've gotten to know the lads really well. But yeah, it's very equal, and it's great. It's probably ahead of its time in sports that way, but it's fantastic.
Brilliant. In terms of we'll skip forward a little bit to the sevens in Seville. Going into that tournament, what was the goal? If I told you at the start you're going to win the silver medal, would you have bitten my hand off? Would you have said, "Ah, yeah, we're going to do
um, Funny, we started goal setting with our new coach after Christmas, and our goals that we set for Malaga, we hit all of them.
Brilliant.
We were quite realistic, but also ambitious at the same time. So we hit all those, and then we sat down and said, right, for Seville, that we wanted to come top four. And after we reached the semi-final after day two, we sat down that evening in the hotel before the semi-final, and we said, no, we have to build on this. That's not enough. So then we built in that we want to be finalists.
Brilliant.
And it turned around, and every goal that we set, we achieved. So I've no doubt that the next set of goals that we set, we're going to have to work even harder to get there. But I think there's definitely value in actually setting them out as a team, so that all of us knew exactly what we were going to try to achieve.
Is there any particular pre-game routine that you go through, or are you kind of process based in that sense?
No, I'm actually pretty chilled. I like to, since it's kind of a team environment, if people are chatting, I'll chat. There's always music on. I actually love listening to Christy Moore, quite funny, before games.
I was not expecting that.
Oh no. And actually, what's been massive for me, Orla Kern is our S&C. She's one of the best people I've ever worked with. She does a WhatsApp voice note for all players who opt in, and it's a visualization routine. Brilliant. For 5 minutes, and she does a specific one for each game. So she will have our game plan that we've already spoke around in our team meeting within that visualization, and I'll listen to that before every single game, and after that then it's kind of the usuals of the warm-up and everything else. There's nothing, I've no lucky socks or anything like that, because I'd be too afraid I'd leave something behind. I'm not the most organised.
In terms of on the pitch and in the game, it's so short, it's so fast, but what's your self-talk like during a match?
I'm not the nicest person to myself, but it pushes myself on, I think. But in fairness, I think I've definitely recently been able to find that what people refer to as flow, kind of where I'm just so engrossed in the game that you're not even thinking, and they're definitely the most enjoyable games. At other times, sometimes I can just get very in my head around a mistake, but I've kind of just learned different triggers, and Orla, who runs water as well for us, will run on, and she'll know the certain trigger that I need in that moment of time just to bring me back to earth. Brilliant. So I've definitely improved in that area over the years.
At the end of a game, you mentioned about work ethic and kind of winning and losing. We've mentioned that a little bit, but how do you define a successful performance for yourself as an individual or in the team? How do you define a successful match, even if you don't win or if you lose? Or sorry, that's the same thing. If you win or lose.
Yeah. I think for us as a team, it's certainly around whether we dictated the game or not. I think if you're dictating the game, often you'll get the win. But even for us, it's around, well, how much of the game can we dictate, and can we play towards our strengths? And sometimes that is when you're in defence, and sometimes it does end in a team scoring, but it means that they've had to work really hard and that we've actually put them under massive pressure. And then for myself, it always comes back to best effort, and then after that, going into a weekend, it's just kind of having confidence in your preparation that I can't turn around and say I should have done this extra during the week in training or during the last 6 months or whatever. So I think once you actually have confidence in your preparation, then it's kind of coming off the field knowing that there was nothing more that I could have given in any given moment.
There was massive support after the run you went on to make to the final and win silver medal. What's it like being a role model? You mentioned previously about when you pull on a jersey, an intercounty jersey, when you pull on an Irish jersey, you're a role model even if you don't think you are. What's it like being a role model, and how conscious are you of that?
I think I'm definitely very conscious, even if for me it's just for two girls. It doesn't matter if it's for two girls or 20 or 2,000 girls that are going to be watching sevens, because we don't have the largest audience, but that's irrelevant to me. It's more around that one or two girls that might be watching, that they actually see a person who's given their all, who's being a good person, who's carrying themselves well, who is what the jersey asks of it, I think. And I'm certainly very conscious of that on and off the field. Even if I'm at home at the weekends, or even if you're going out socialising with friends, I'm always very conscious that for as long as I'm in the programme, I do represent an Irish women's sevens player. So for me, it's very important that I'm able to actually personify what we are trying to be as a team and what we're trying to be known as. So yeah, definitely, you do definitely carry that responsibility with you, because you get so much from the jersey. So with that comes the responsibility of making sure that you're doing it proud as well.
What's the hardest part about being a high level athlete, being a semi-professional? Is there any, there's always downfalls of anything, but what's the hardest part about the whole thing, even though it's such an honour and such an amazing thing? I'm sure there are little things that are very difficult.
I smile because it's an easy answer. Missing playing club football with Tinahealy, that's definitely the downfall for me. If I could do both, that would be like dream come true. Yeah. But yeah, it actually is like, they're girls that I've grown up with. They're equally a family to me because I've grown up with them. I see I'm there in the stands or running water when my sisters went in a county final, and I know right well that we played for years together. So it's definitely hard not being around, or not being on the pitch with those girls. But other than that, it's there's so many positives, and I know that they support me as well. So it definitely, the positives outweigh the negatives.
Is Gaelic football something you might look to again in the future? Is that potentially in the plans?
Yeah, definitely. Tinahealy jersey in the future. I'll get that back on me at some stage.
Brilliant. Across either sport, what's been the best advice you've received from a player or a coach?
You've got me on that one. I think probably it was probably Anthony Eddy as a coach who really hammered home very early for me that it is just the little things. That he would place massive focus on small things, and that made me, as a person who often I like to get things done and I like to get them done quickly, that it really helped me focus in on the fact that it is just small things done well over and over again. So yeah, that was probably a big learning for me.
For those that don't understand what those small things are and the importance of the intangibles, which I've only really realised since coaching, can you explain, as a player, what do you see as those little things, those little intangibles that are so important, that add up to those 1%ers that bring you to that next level?
Yeah, I guess like even just small examples from a rugby perspective is like you can make a pass that someone catches, but it's they have to just check themselves for a split second, check the run, or the ball is slightly low or slightly high, that it's might take away a millisecond that they have to make a decision or to put pace on and get through the line. Or when you're making a tackle, that it's like that you could have made it a second quicker, or you could have got back on your feet a second earlier to get back into a defensive line. It's even the very basic things of talking, like being able to actually open your mouth and voice yourself when you're absolutely blowing after 3 minutes of sevens, and how important that is in the grand scheme of things. Like it often, a game does come down to those very, very small things, and we've seen that happen over and over again. So it's just trying to make sure that you're constantly on top of those small things.
Brilliant. Moving forward for yourself as an individual, I suppose, and the team as well, going through the success. I know you've personally got calls up to the 15 side. Over the next couple of years, where do you hope to go? What do you hope to achieve?
I think for this squad for this season is definitely the World Cup in Cape Town. We still have to qualify for that, so it's a massive year for the sevens program. They only come around once every 4 years, so it's the first big competition we've had since San Fran, since we missed out on Tokyo. So for us, that's massive. And we'd be hoping to go for a medal at a World Cup, and then over the next couple of years, 100% to make the Paris Olympics. It's an Olympic program at the end of the day, in Olympic sports. So that's where you want your world class athletes to be, and I think it'd be a massive boost for sevens in the country if we could, as a women's program, get to the Paris Olympics.
Brilliant. I'm going to move on to the sideline 7. It's the same 7 questions at the end of every episode. You can take it as fire round or thought provoking, whatever you wish. Question 1: what is your favourite quote?
Hard work pays off.
I kind of knew it was going to be along the lines of that.
Yeah. Matt Fraser, CrossFitter, actually has like a whole t-shirt brand with HWPO. But yeah, definitely hard work pays off.
Brilliant. Question 2: what's the best sporting event you've been to? And you can pick one as a fan and one as a player.
Ooh, as a player, probably the World Cup in San Francisco. That was pretty cool. And as a fan, I'm not very good at going to sporting events. I just spend my time going to GA games, so I'm going to have to say Tinahealy County Final down in Ockram.
I was just thinking it has to be something Tinahealy related. Question 3: what's been the biggest setback or challenge so far in your career, and how did you react to it?
Missing out on the Tokyo Olympics. That was at a European qualifier in Kazan, and that took months to get over. Yeah, that was definitely the worst.
Kind of on the flip side then, what's been your biggest achievement on or off the pitch?
For me, definitely Seville getting the silver medal was massive. Massive for us as a squad as well. And another massive highlight was I got to coach the under-18 sevens 1 year, a couple of years ago. And Eve Higgins, Emily Lane, Megan Burns, Dorothy Wall, Enya Breen, Anna Doyle. There were so many talented young girls that now are my teammates. And that was one of the coolest things I've ever done.
That's so cool. What's it like? What was the original thing? And then coming into the dressing room was a little bit weird, being like, "Oh, I'm your teammate now," whereas you'd have been given out to them, or well, not given out, but given instruction as a coach. Yeah,
I guess I did it. They just had 2 tournaments. I think I ended up doing like two weekend camps and 2 tournaments. So
okay,
it kind of was a less formal role of a coach that I.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of was like a mentor nearly for them. But yeah, again, when they came into the program at first, I was like, right, now I'm your teammate. We can have crack together. There's no boundaries here now. We can just actually talk and have crack in the dressing room.
Yeah, that's lovely though. Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
To 18-year-old self, I would say just to follow your gut, never stop enjoying yourself. And focus on the little things.
Love it. Question 6: who would be your dream dinner guest and why? And you can open up the table to a few people if you want.
A few people. Serena Williams, Katie Taylor, Oprah Winfrey, I have to throw her in there, and Richie McCaw.
Wow. What are we thinking dinner wise? Are you cooking, getting a takeaway?
A big steak dinner, I think.
Brilliant. Last question before I let you go. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
I think The Breakthrough.
Brilliant. So you're setting yourself up for big things now.
Yeah, I hope so. That's the plan.
Lucy, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really enjoyed this. The very best of luck with everything on and off the pitch. And thanks again. Massive thank you to Lucy for joining me on the podcast today. Just to note, this episode was recorded a number of weeks before the women's TikTok Six Nations had occurred. I just want to wish her the very best of luck with the sevens and the 15s moving forward. If you would like to keep up with her career, I'll be sure to leave all of our social media links in the description box below. If you are enjoying the podcast, I'd really appreciate if you leave a rating and a review over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as it does help the show grow.